Welcome to the 225th Owl Freedom Teachings. I am Julian Catari. This is Blue Heron Women. And today we are going to talk about a surprise topic because we were long on the sexuality talks and research, discovering how important pleasure is for freedom and for sovereignty. But we're going to do a little break on that because I guess we're going to continue on that, aren't we?
Yeah.
But so we're going to do a little talk about, well, not so little, it's going to be a whole show about the Easter, the deceits, the lies, the truths of Easter. And so we're going to go down that rabbit hole. And if you're interested in that, if you want to challenge your beliefs, then grab a seat, grab some popcorn, and get ready for this journey. So welcome everyone.
So why are we going down this rabbit hole? Because for us to truly de-armor ourselves and experience pleasure and live as pleasure-directed beings, which we are, we got to dismantle this lie right here.
Right. Yes.
Biggest lie, one of the biggest lies in history.
That's the price of freedom, is being able to unshackle yourself from your own beliefs.
Yes. Yeah. So, the lie of Easter. Why would an all-powerful God need to watch his son bleed and die to forgive you and I or us? Has anyone ever asked that?
Nobody asks anything about that.
Yeah. So every year, thousands or millions of people kneel and fast in silence. They cry in front of a cross, and yet no one stops to ask, why does forgiveness require torture? What kind of father demands that? Julian, do you demand that of your kids when they disobey you?
No.
So what kind of father?
I'm not expecting obedience either.
Right. Well, that's another rabbit hole we're not going to go down tonight. What kind of a father would demand torture? Right. Yeah. What kind of love charges pain as payment? None of us have ever stopped to ask this. So Easter and the resurrection of a teacher named Jesus, and it really is not a story of love as we've been programmed to believe. It's the story of a transaction. Think about all the images of Good Friday. Thousands of people focused on the image of a man nailed to wood, his head crowned with thorns, his side opened by a spear. Can we experience pleasure from that? I mean, we've been taught we need to, but is that truly pleasure? Did he experience pleasure from that? Most certainly not.
Nobody's thinking of pleasure at this point.
Right. Well, so imagine coming from deep in the Amazon or another planet and never having heard about Christianity or Catholicism and its beliefs, right? What would you see then coming from that scene, walking into this yearly procession in the cities around the cathedrals where they do this? Well, you'd probably see a public ritual built around an execution with a crowd emotionally attached to an instrument of torture. People thanking a father who allowed his son to be killed. And you probably wouldn't call it holy. You'd probably call it horrifying. Yet millions of us don't see it as horrifying because before we were able to question it, we were told that his death was necessary for love and that it was done for us. Done for us. That phrase is so powerful that it shuts down one question, a free mind, two questions. A free mind would ask, what are we saved from? And why is the method execution? What was done for us?
Yeah.
And why is the method execution? Two questions, right? So Easter processions don't invite us to think. They invite us to feel by surrounding us with music, ritual, and emotion. And inside emotion, we don't analyze. So at the center of this beauty, and let's go beyond Easter and think of funerals in general, right? At the center of this beauty, there's not a message of love. There's a structure of debt and substitutionary atonement that says someone had to pay, but we couldn't. So he paid with his body, his blood, and his suffering. So the logic is that humanity is born in debt, and not because of something we did, but because supposedly the two people at the beginning of time committed an original sin. And every funeral procession follows this, right? We proceed, we we follow a body in death. So the debt is toward God because his honor was offended, his authority challenged, his justice violated. So according to this system, a just God cannot simply forgive. He has to collect, because if he forgives without payment, he's not just. And if he's not just, then there isn't a God. So the system defines God in a way that makes forgiveness impossible without violence. And we need to let that sit with us. It creates a God who cannot let go unless he sees suffering, which would be the start of the armored pain body. A God who needs blood before he can release debt. And because no human is pure enough or good enough to be forgiven of an infinite debt or good enough to pay it, he sends his son to suffer in our place for us. So if we put this simply to that person coming from the Amazon or another planet going, what the fuck is going on here? Why are you following a broken body on a cross?
Yeah.
We would have to say that, well, our belief is that an all-powerful God created humans. Humans failed, and instead of forgiving forgiving us, this all-powerful God required the torture and execution of his son to make forgiveness possible. Does that sound like sacred love, or does it sound like a payment system? So if God is truly omnipotent, he could forgive bloodlessly. He could erase all debts with a decision to say, you're forgiven. But the system says he couldn't, which means he's not free. He is bound by a rule. Think of that. To all Christians, Catholics out there, you believe in this. You believe that there's a God who is not free, that demands suffering as currency. So wow. This is a structure that cannot function without victims, a system that requires pain to operate. And we've got to look at this with these eyes of cold-hearted, or so to speak, rationalism, to see through the bullshit of what we've been taught. Because until we see through this, we cannot truly allow ourselves to experience pleasure, much less sexual pleasure. Because the same God, the same son, was supposedly asexual, right? So requires pain to operate. What have we talked about the system that America is? Same thing that we're imposing on Iran right now, right? Misery imposition. So the system requires pain to operate. The most disturbing thing is that as Christians or Catholics, we've been taught to see this as beautiful and feel grateful for it. Yep, absolutely. Born and raised Seventh-day Adventists, absolutely. Yes. Without a doubt. I was raised that way my entire life. Grateful for the nails, grateful for the blood, the suffering. And not one of us in religion has stopped to ask, what if there was never any debt to begin with?
Mm-hmm.
I know I, as a young kid, was like, what the hell? Why? What? How does this equal love? So every time I went through it, it was just for the ritual to pacify my parents, because I'm like, this just doesn't make sense to me.
Mm.
So if we strip away every layer of emotion, every ritual, every inherited belief, and see the story as it has been told to us, God created us. We're sinful and we failed him. So instead of forgiving, despite being all powerful, he requires the torture and execution of his son to make forgiveness possible. We can finally see it as it is, a system for enforcing payment.
Mm-hmm.
And the system works worldwide now without the religious story.
Mm-hmm.
When we start by asking where this idea came from, we don't find Jesus, who is the teacher of love and the kingdom of heaven being inside us, who lifted the poor out of poverty and confronted Roman power, and never, ever presented himself as a sacrificial payment to settle a universal debt. We find that the idea comes from people who never walked with him or shared a meal with him or even knew him. It comes from people who took a political execution to be the center of a new theology. So suddenly it's not about what Jesus taught, it's about why he died and what his death supposedly accomplished. So when we celebrate Easter in churches, in processions, and maybe even in our own Easter egg hunts, we're not celebrating what happened. We are allowing man, who decided that an event should mean debt, sacrifice, and blood as payment, to control us. And for those who weren't raised in religion, it's still, this is a collective unconscious. So it still behooves you to go, no, I don't believe in this.
Mm-hmm.
Don't want this. No. So, and we have to remember that those men that decided this have been dead for thousands of years. So why are we still letting them control us?
Mm-hmm.
And all this depends on the assumption that God is a two-legged white guy, a being with emotions like pride and anger, who can feel offended and therefore demand payment for the offense.
Mm.
And then can design punishment and forgiveness that exists somewhere up there in the sky. When we find the absolute spiritual truth that God is not a king in body in the sky somewhere, separate from the world and us, and that he is not judging us and violating spiritual cosmic law by intervening, but that God is nature itself, infinite, eternal, without emotion, without ego, without fear, without anger, and the ability to be offended. So therefore, no need to punish and no need to forgive, because there's nothing to be offended by. We're free to experience pleasure as we were meant to. So then the system that held us collapses in our psyche, because if God has no anger, then no one offended him and there's no debt. And if there's no debt, there's nothing to pay and no need for sacrifice. And so the cross is not a divine plan. It simply is what it was, a political execution of a man who challenged the power structure of the time. And what remains then is the truth, the absolute freedom truth, that life is a dance, free of guilt, without the need for redemption.
Mm-hmm.
When the historical execution became a cosmic necessity, the system gained internal control of us, because guilt doesn't need chains. It works on its own by telling you that you're broken, and someone can make you not broken by being tortured and executed. And that's beautiful, and that you need to feel grateful.
Mm-hmm.
it just really fully hit me this Easter that, yeah, I spent so much of my life believing in this. So much of my life.
Yeah.
So this, letting go of this or believing in this reduces our power to live in freedom without guilt. And the knowing that there is no debt and no savior and no structure of control. And that's the chain that binds us, this perfect, self-sustaining, invisible chain. Every link depending on the one before it. And it all began with the idea that we owe something. So let's take one more look at the structure before we go back to the pleasure commandments. Because we have to let go of this before we can truly, for every one who's leaving the Christian or Catholic religion, we've got to let go of this to truly experience pleasure and be able to live a pleasure-directed life. Let's look at this structure, the chain that binds us. We were born in debt, and the debt can't be paid by someone like us. So someone else has already paid it for us through suffering and death with our established response of gratitude and submission. And what gives this life is the emotion, the yearly rituals, the repetition, the slow movement. Here we go, the funeral processions. The slow movement of a broken body through the streets while someone cries. And it's repeated with every funeral procession and every sermon that the pastor gives for the funeral. So maybe this will also affect how we hold our funerals too, how we let our dead bodies decompose. So once we can see that there is no debt, then there is no creditor, and there is nothing left to justify, to fear, to pay. And now our theme can be, how can I live with more pleasure? And no belief in suffering or pain being necessary. So therefore, more absolute freedom, instead of how do I repay what I owe? Which takes us to jobs, to endlessly work, hours upon hours to repay what we owe, because there's honor in debt, because, right? And if we truly believed that his death on the cross paid for everything for us, then we wouldn't even begin to repay debt. But we live this stupid belief that, oh, he died for our sins, and I'm such a sinner that I can't repay my debt, but yet I got to work and work and work because there's such honor in paying debt. So until we really evaluate these beliefs that have been in our psyche for 6,000 years, we can't really truly let go of it. We can't really fully live a pleasure-directed, loving life until we evaluate this basic. And that came to me because we just went through Easter again. So
we're gonna be searching for the payment somewhere and the suffering somewhere, even if it's not here.
Even if we've never been to church and believe in it, it's still there. It's still there in Mexico. It's still there wherever there's a Catholic church. There's an Easter procession. It's still there. Whether you believe in it or not, it's still there. So you have to physically say, no, I don't believe in this at all. That's the importance of this, because that collective belief, that collective pendulum controls us all, whether we want to believe it or not. Until we say, no more.
Yep.
So, on that note, let's get back to the 20 commandments of pleasure.
Oh, really? Today?
Yeah, today.
Okay. So that
We
was it
like
for the
to,
Easter.
yeah, that was it for the Easter. Yeah, we just need to sit with that and go, do I really want to, especially with what's going on in our world, even though there's a 2 week ceasefire?
Hmm. Yeah, and I would say that this belief gets reflected in any belief system, because that's what we perceive outside. I mean, everybody is believing that, and so we subconsciously expect some type of punishment for our, and we believe that acting out of pleasure is going to have a cost somehow, right?
Yeah, we
And
do.
so that we're gonna have to pay for it, uh, and there's this association of pleasure is sin,
Yep,
even if
yep,
you're not. I mean, even if you're a Buddhist or whatever,
yeah,
it's there. Not let's not have too much pleasure
yep.
because I'm gonna be trapped by it. I'm gonna be. Um, I need to abstract myself out of earthly living in order to stay clean and pure. And there's a minimal truth in where, well, you don't want to be kind of chained to something. Like at points you do want to have that ability to at a to find pleasure in not in nothing, I guess, and just being there and just sitting or um
Well, yeah,
and not
yeah.
needing, like, something to feel pleasure. um but it
Well,
all gets messed around, right? So
and
anyway.
maybe before we go into the, maybe I'll just ad lib here.
Mhm.
Maybe I'll work on notes that I haven't put on put into PDF format yet.
Mhm.
Um, because before we go on with the 20 commandments of pleasure, maybe we need to understand beyond this torture, the scientific basis of
Mhm.
how we cannot exist without the pleasure of touch.
Okay. And you know what that makes me think? It makes me think that, or it reminds me that I have the suspicion, maybe you'll come to this somewhere in the research, you'll find it somewhere. But I have the suspicion that we, as much as we become hooked, I don't want to say addicted, but let's say hooked to a pleasure, something that is pleasurable, we also get hooked into something that hurts us, that makes us suffer. So we're addicted, in so to say, to suffering. And I say this because I perceive that in many people, where it's like everything's all right for them, and then they have to, their mind is, because they were raised in a situation where there was constant drama, constant problems, and as soon as they're in a moment where there is no problems, they have to go dig for them.
Exactly. We are. That's why I brought this up with Easter. We
Mhm.
have to understand that started with this addiction to suffering, started with the original sin, which was imposed by the Emperor Augustine in the Council of 438, something like that.
Mhm.
But that started with this story of Jesus' death on the cross being, we're in debt. So therefore we must feel gratitude for his suffering. And if we feel gratitude for his suffering, then we must feel gratitude for our own suffering, which then takes us to doctors. Oh my God, there's got to be something wrong with me. I need to suffer. I need a diagnosis that I need to talk about.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, we are addicted to negativity.
Negativity and suffering, and we're imposing it. As we saw already, it's a worldwide thing that America has been doing as the world police, imposing, and with the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund and everything, we're imposing suffering and misery. And no, it's time to stop. It's time to
Hmm.
just stop and withdraw from that and say no more suffering.
Yeah.
We
Wow.
cannot fully get into being the pleasure directed people we are, which is absolutely necessary
Hmm.
for biology. That's why. So just bear with me as I ad lib, as I took notes, and I haven't yet typed it out on how we are biologically wired
Hmm.
for the pleasure of touch.
Yeah.
Just to start with, so 20 seconds.
Hmm.
20 seconds. That's all how long it takes that you need to hold someone before your body creates a chemical response of pleasure that
Hmm.
cannot be crossed in any other way. 20 seconds.
Mm.
20 seconds is all it takes. So in these first few seconds, you're hugging someone. In the first few seconds, the pressure receptors deep in the skin of the person you're hugging fire and send a signal to that person's brain. By 10 seconds, the nervous system of that person you're hugging shifts toward calm. And by 20 seconds, the pituitary gland in that person and your pituitary gland, as you're the hugger, the
Hmm.
pituitary gland of the huggee and the pituitary gland of the hugger
Hmm.
releases a pleasurable pulse of oxytocin, the bonding chemical. Most of us let go of that hug before 20 seconds.
Mm. Okay. So that's good thing. That's an easy thing to remember. You hold it for 20 seconds every time you hug.
Yeah.
Okay. Noted.
So when two bodies stay in contact long enough, something happens that has nothing to do with chemistry. It's mechanical that monitors can pick up. Mechanical being used liberally here.
Hmm.
So we have every single mammalian body has two completely separate touch systems that report to different parts of our brains. The first is by our large, fast nerve fibers that are wrapped in myelin or insulating sheets that accelerate signal transmission, most usually like 50 millimeters per second, something profoundly fast. And they connect to receptors deep in our skin. Those receptors deep in our skin detect posture, vibration, compression, and then they fire rapidly and tell our brains where we are being touched, how hard, the shape of what is touching us. This is the mechanical channel. It maps the hug in physical coordinates, the arms wrapped around us, the chest that's pressed against us. But in 2002, a neuropsychologist in Sweden identified a second system through a woman who had lost all of those major nerve fibers. So those nerve fibers demyelinated. She couldn't even feel a pinch anymore.
Hmm.
When he stroked her skin, say with a feather, at a rate of like 10 millimeters per second, the slow spread of the caress, she felt a faint pleasure sensation. This is where we talked about slow sex from Adam Tokunaga, the using of your fingers to
Hmm.
stimulate the skin of a woman, right? her somatic sensing cortex was silent, which is where the mechanical, the outer layers. Remember, we talked. The brain has 6 layers of the cortex. So those upper 3 layers were silent. The region that maps the mechanical sensation, that's the outer, that's the heaven, right, of the hexagram. That's the upper part. But deep in her brain, deep down in those last 3 layers, the part associated with emotion, pleasure, not because we understand that emotion is a word that just came up not too long ago. So the pleasure sensing, processing, and social bonding was active. So this is the second touch system. It's a tactile system. And these fibers don't respond to a poke or a jab or a pinch. They respond to gentle, slow, moving pressure applied at skin temperature. The exact parameters can be sustained by a hug, a palm resting on your back or on your leg or on your arm, or, somewhere someone touches you for 20 seconds. That picks it up. The steady compression of a body hugging one another. The mechanical channels, the upper 3 hexagrams, say, I am being compressed by another body in a hug. The tactile channel files a report that now says, wow, I'm safe. Through the gentleness, the warmth, the duration, and the stillness. And then it evaluates for social meaning for this. So a hug for 20 seconds activates both of these systems at full strength, but a handshake would only activate the first. So the mechanical system doesn't measure temperature or the velocity of contact or the duration or even the felt quality of being held. It just measures touch. The secondary system, the fibers are dense. They're on the back. They're on our shoulders, our upper arms, our forearms, our scalp, where affectionate touch most commonly lands. And incidentally, in pigs, in the male pigs and the boar pigs, that's where they armor the most. That's where their skin is so freaking thick. You can't, a 1,000-pound boar, you cannot get through their skin there. Not at all. It's like steel, which is really interesting. So this is where they armor to affection. So these fibers in humans are sparse on our palms and fingertips, where the pressure mechanical detection is more useful for manipulating objects. Right? So the geography of our tactile system matches the geography of human affection or human pleasure. The body places its pleasurable touch sensors precisely where other bodies are most likely to hold it. So where someone else's arms wrap around you, or where your arms wrap around them, or where that secondary system gets stimulated. The system was not designed for general sensation. It was designed for embrace. It was designed to be hugged. It was, right? So the 20-second mark, then release it. So the oxytocin in both peoples, the hugger and the huggee. This is binary, bidirectional, bidirectional system. So this is the time, the 20 seconds is the time the system needs to confirm that the touch is sustained, it's safe, and it's worth responding to. Other researchers have looked at the cortisol responses, cortisol being our stress hormone, right? And found that a 20-second hug physically buffers the stress response. So 2 people who hugged for 20 seconds have high oxytocin and low cortisol, and they then perceive their environment as safe. The world around them hasn't changed, but their interoceptive system changed due to the touch, the hug. So oxytocin suppresses cortisol production downstream inflammation decreases. And if you have a wound, then skin healing happens faster. If you don't, healing still, if there's anything in your body going wrong, downstream healing happens faster. So the effects of a 20-second hug can persist for up to an hour after being hugged for 20 seconds. So in 2017, a researcher measured what happens when partners held each other for more than 1 minute, more than 60 seconds, right? Their heart rate synchronized, their breath rate synchronized. And so then 2 separate nervous systems began to oscillate in phase. And the system with the stronger, more stable and trained, the weaker. So if someone was calm and cool and collected and hugged, and they hugged their partner who was stressed out, that stronger, calm partner would entrain the one who was stressed out, and he or she would now become calm. They also looked at pain perception during touch, and found that partners who went to the doctor for a shot or something painful, who held hands while receiving that mild painful stimuli, experienced less pain. And this is measurable. This isn't just objective. This was measurable by instruments, because the reduction of pain correlated with the degree of heart synchronization between the 2. So it's not distraction, it's co-regulation. And we've had a war on codependency since I can remember. I think it started when this concept of codependent started, maybe when I was a young adult. So, you're codependent. You can't exist without him. You need to find a man that, right? We could go down that rabbit hole, but there's been a war on codependency for eons, which is also misery imposition. However, our bodies were not designed to regulate themselves alone. They were designed to be stabilized by contact with other bodies. So there is no such thing as codependency. Even Bruce Lipton talks about this. He talks about how sodium and chloride together, they wobble, right? They're codependent. They need to be together. Well, yeah, we wouldn't have salt without sodium chloride. And he talks about how the noble gases, like what's the one that lights up the signs?
Helium?
Yeah, helium is a noble gas. They excite each other. But the problem is the noble gases don't co-regulate each other. Sodium and chloride co-regulate each other. That's not codependency, it's co-regulation. So even our spiritual teachers are teaching a war on codependency, which is co-regulation, and our bodies are not meant.
So we're not codependent, we're co-regulated.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the mechanism requires physical coupling or contact, the physical coupling of a hug or a touch,
Mm-hmm.
a warm, affectionate touch for 20 seconds. Hug or touch for 20 seconds, stabilized by contact with the other body, right? So 20 seconds releases the chemistry of oxytocin. 1 minute synchronizes the hearts together. And touch, therefore, is a biological requirement. Its absence produces damage that not even food can prevent. People deprived of regular physical contact had chronically elevated cortisol, the stress hormone, decreased oxytocin, of course, increased inflammation, decreased killer cell activity, and disrupted sleep patterns, elevated resting heart rate, and high blood pressure. So if the doctors started asking people who went into the hospital or their doctor's offices and had high blood pressure, it would be like, when was the last time you were touched for 20 seconds in an affectionate way?
Mm-hmm.
Would probably be more revealing than anything. So as long as the touch deprivation continues, this happens. High blood pressure, increased inflammation, disease, right? So the body does not adapt. Our bodies do not adapt to the absence of touch. It does not learn to self-regulate without external input. It just stays in a state of elevated stress as long as the touch deprivation continues. So a body that is regularly held locates its resources allocates its resources differently. So this is not psychological, it is endocrine, it is chemical. The system responds to touch and any sustained, gentle, warm contact. So it doesn't need just humans. So hugging cats, the cat sitting on you and purring for 20 minutes, or looking at you with absolute adoration and patting you with their soft little paws, will do the same thing. Or a dog, petting a dog or other animals also activates the same oxytocin. And by allowing yourself to be touched by that other animal, is still bidirectional. So you're doing the animal good too. You're reducing any stress in an animal by petting them for 20 seconds, touching them, or allowing them to touch you for 20 seconds.
Yeah, they seek touch quite often.
This oxytocin pathway is bidirectional across species. So massage, of course, would also do it. Also, the reason touch is not optional is evolutionary, because all mammals are born helpless, and every mammalian infant survives through sustained physical contact with a caregiver. So even though, like goats and pigs, and they're all born able to stand up and like my most recent donkey, able to stand up and move within an hour, they still mama's tongue touches them, mama's nose touches them all the time. It's the only way they're able to stand up. Really. So warmth, feeling, protection. The tactile system evolved to ensure that the infant's body could detect whether it was being held and respond accordingly. Being touched by mama's nose means safe. Being touched by mama's tongue, in the case of animals, means safe, right? Which means you grow, you repair, you digest, and you sleep. Not being held means danger, which means high cortisol, stress hormone, vigilance, conservation of resources, and no growth. So this binary of held or not held, safe or not safe, is the oldest regulatory signal in mammalian physiology. It operates below our awareness, below consciousness, below choice. So the bottom line is our skin contains a dedicated sensory system specifically for affectionate touch, not torture.
Mm-hmm.
Our hypothalamus contains molecular machinery that synthesizes a bonding hormone in response. So the hypothalamus tells the pituitary to release oxytocin to the sustained gentle pressure. And our nervous system was designed to be co-regulated by another body through physical coupling. Whether it's just a hug or touch. So touch is not optional. It's not a luxury. It's a requirement that all body systems require. And this absence produces measurable reproducible pathology across every population that has ever been studied. So 20 seconds is the minimal dose, 60 seconds is the optimal.
Okay.
So we need to get past the following broken bodies in processions to the gravesite and start hugging one another for 20 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty. Okay, so that's a thorough explanation of we need to hug.
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that those tactile receptors are where, I mean, can it be any more perfect than to be designed where we're naturally touched by hug?
Mm-hmm. And we've spoken about how before and how we've been. I mean, it's been then since they know this, they strategically are finding ways to keep us separated and not touching. And
Oh, COVID
we
was
had a whole show about
Yeah.
not touching.
COVID
Which is
was
pretty
the
cool, yeah.
absolute, right? The
Yeah.
start of that. Absolutely no touching.
Yeah. So wow. Already, so
See now, yeah. So this is why, I mean, the two kind of go together, because you don't see anywhere in the Jesus story of Easter where he was ever touched.
hmm.
You know, not only was it a transaction of you fucked up so badly, I need to watch my son bleed and die for your forgiveness. It's no, we can't even touch him.
Yeah.
Right. So until we start dismantling this kind of nonsense in our systems, we cannot fully experience pleasure. And not, I mean, that's the start of the armoring, is those teachings right there.
Mm-hmm.
And they've done studies with infants in the neonatal ICU that those that are able to be touched, when they bring in the parents and let them touch the babies in the incubators, they grow and they heal and they are able. But those that, when they haven't allowed them to be touched, they just don't do well.
Yeah, I remember that. That's a very peculiar piece of data you gave us.
Right, and then it goes for old people too in nursing homes. Why do you think COVID locked old people into nursing homes without touch? To kill them.
That's just yeah.
That's the bottom line.
That's what it is finding ways to kill us.
Our bodies are meant to be co-regulated. We're meant to be together. We're meant to be in unity with someone. Doesn't mean lifelong. Again,
Mhm.
monogamy is, it just means we're meant to be in unity.
Mhm. Yeah, keep us separated, and they win the war against the
Yeah.
real war is against everyone.
Yeah. Keep you
Mhm.
separated. I can put you in a cell easily.
Mhm.
Right.
Alrighty, so are we going to continue next
So
week on
next
with the
week we'll get back.
sexuality to the pleasure
Yes.
commandments, which was pretty exciting.
Next,
Um, Maybe you can share them in a list. So I want to make a little kind of text list, and I can put them
I'll
up
do
as
that
we're
for you this week.
like as your one comes up. I'll put the text up there. It makes it more fun and visual. And
Yeah, we'll start, since we stopped halfway through, we'll start with just a brief list of the ones we already covered and then get into the next.
oh, that would be great. Yes, yes, to have it all nice and
So,
ordered.
yeah.
Alrighty.
But I
So we'll.
felt with this Easter, with Easter just having happened, it was absolutely necessary to dismantle this lie,
Mhm.
right? So that we can fully step into our human, our touch, our ability to feel affection and full pleasure without
Mhm.
guilt.
Yeah. Well, the
So
thing is now it's now gone, and it brought a loom. I like to say that. It's been cloudy and stormy here for the last 3 days and cold. So the Easter took the sun away.
that's kind of funny.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, it
here
brought.
it's been nice and sunny, but chilly at night. So
Okay,
it's been glorious during the day.
okay. Alrighty, so let's end the show and invite people
Yeah.
for next week. There's nothing else to say, but thank you for being here. If you went all the way through this and listened to everything on the recorded version, well, you're a brave one. And if you're even more brave, you can join us at alohiding.living.com. Otherwise, give us some kind of support, and we'll see each other next week as you choose to join us once again. So thank you all, and we'll end the stream.